Well, as we all know by now, there's been a lot of controversy over the whole Spider-Man being pulled out of the MCU, and there's also been the much more hopeful news of late that Kevin Smith is going to be doing a He-Man television, well, not so much reboot, but a restarting of the old classic animated series just to finish out some plot lines and yada yada yada. But I think the real news that kind of got buried in all that, that's of much more actual interest to true science fiction fans, is the fact that we're getting a fourth Matrix movie from Lana Wachowski, and that apparently it's got Keanu Reeves and Carrie-Anne Moss going to be involved in it. And it's the Carrie-Anne Moss part that gives me the most puzzlement, but also could indicate one of two potential ways this movie can manifest. Now, if it's a true sequel to the previous Matrix movies that we've already seen, things were ended off in such a way, and the Matrix Revolutions, that Neo's consciousness can still be alive in the Matrix, and technically even his body might not even really be dead. They could have just yanked him off unconscious and plugged him into one of their little BioVat battery tubes, and he could just be living his life off that way. But Carrie-Anne Moss is very, very, very much dead in that continuum. So how could she be in a movie that's set fourth in sequence? Well, my own personal take on how to deal with that would be maybe at least at the beginning of the movie, Neo is kind of living in a projected world of his own creation, in whatever kind of unconscious state he still exists in, just as pure mind in the Matrix. He's created his own little world around him, in much the same way that the characters in the Matrix will affect how they look and how their clothes are styled and all that kind of stuff. To kind of be a reflection of their perfect idealized self. In a similar way, maybe it's going to start off with Neo's existence, and everything he perceives around him is kind of a similar thing. It's all kind of a projection of what he wants things to be, which would include having Trinity still there with him instead of having her chest punched out by a bunch of steel rods. So, there's that. What I'm more hoping for, and what's also quite possible in this age of de-aging CGI, is that we'll have a Matrix movie that's an actual proper sequel to the first Matrix. I think one of the key problems to the Matrix trilogy as is that while there is 3 movies, which does technically make it a trilogy, there's really only 2 stories. There's not 3 stories. You have the original Matrix, which is its own contained beast. In its most simplest form, it's the origin of the hero and the hero discovering and unlocking his powers. And then we have the second 2 Matrix movies, which are very much even right down to how they were filmed and how they're cut. They just split it right in half, but really they're just one big continuous story. They're really just one movie in and of themselves, but since it was pushing 5 hours, they just chopped it right down the middle, and bam, we have a trilogy out of 2 stories. But that story was the final culmination of Neo's journey, him fulfilling his role in prophecy. And so, narratively, we jump from the very first chapter to the big climax, and we never got this middle path part where we just kind of get to know what the dynamics of our hero and his team are. We never got to see them have a little adventure where they go intact from point A to point B. Neo, yes, he's gained his abilities to influence the Matrix and see what's going on in the Matrix, but he still hasn't mastered it yet to the degree that we see him in the Matrix Revolutions and Matrix Reloaded, or even Enter the Matrix. I guess that's another question. Or since we're in the age of what's the point of revamping old franchises unless you're going to sell a lot of merchandise? Are we going to have a bunch of video game spin-offs to go along with this movie too? But anyway, since we have all the digital de-aging stuff that Marvel's certainly done, I can easily see them having Carrie-Anne Moss and Keanu Reeves just be aged back down to how they looked like in around the year 2000 or so. Then I guess the other questions is are we going to get Lawrence Fishburne back as Morpheus? Are we going to have the original Dozer around? Maybe finally find out exactly why Dozer quit and then they had to bring in Link. All that kind of stuff. I look forward to it. I'm surprisingly looking forward to it, considering how influential those movies have been on the public psyche, and how much in modern times the whole message of the red pill seems to resonate with everyone, especially here on YouTube. I don't see how it could possibly hurt. Um, so yeah, the fact that it's only one of the Wachowskis, that could go either way. Well, only time will tell. So, but compared to most of the other things that are being rebooted or dragged out of the closet again, they can do worse. So, as I say to this, the real question mark is as to what this thing is going to be. Really, kind of revolves down to why on earth is Carrie Ann Moss back in the cast. So, we'll find out. Y'all have a good one.